In London, right after he gets there, the Ripper murders begin. And right after he leaves, they stop.
On the 31st of August, 1888, just minutes before dawn, in Whitechapel, a poor and crowded part of East London, a carter named Charles Cross is walking along Buck's Row when he spots something lying on the ground. At first, he thinks it's a bundle of cloth, but when he steps closer, his heart sinks. It's the body of a woman. Another man joins him moments later, and under the dim street lamp, they see the woman's throat has been cut almost to the spine. Her name was Mary Ann Polly Nichols. She was dead, and she was the first known victim of a killer who would later be called Jack the Ripper. This was no ordinary murder. What began that night would turn into one of the most terrifying mysteries in history. Over 130 years later, we are still asking the same question. Who was Jack the Ripper? Stay with this story to the end, because the truth, or what's left of it, will chill you to the bone. Back in 1888, Whitechapel was a dark place. Its streets were dirty, its alleys narrow and twisting. Many people there had no jobs or homes. Crime, disease, and hunger were everywhere. Some women had to sell their bodies just to survive. Polly Nichols was one of them, and her murder was only the beginning. On September 8th of that same year, a second woman, Annie Chapman, was found behind a house on Hanbury Street. Her throat had been cut. Her body had been opened up. Some of her organs were missing. People began to whisper. A serial killer was walking among them. Then came September 30th. The killer struck again. The first victim that night was Elizabeth Stride, found dead outside a workers' club. Her throat had been cut, but her body wasn't mutilated. Some believed the killer had been interrupted. Less than an hour later, a second body was discovered nearby. Catherine Eddowes had been attacked in a square. Her face and body were horribly cut, and one of her kidneys was missing. London was in shock. 2 murders in one night? The newspapers called it the double event. The last known victim was found on November 9th. Mary Jane Kelly, just 25 years old, was lying dead in her small, rented room. Her body had been butchered beyond recognition. Even the police were shaken. It was the worst scene they had ever seen. 5 women, all poor, all alone, all brutally murdered. And then it stopped. Just like that, the killer vanished. During the time of the murders, strange letters began to arrive. They were written in red ink and sent to the newspapers and police. One letter, dated late September, was signed Jack the Ripper. The writer mocked the police and promised more killings. Another postcard followed, then a third letter. This one was the most disturbing of all. It came in a box with half a human kidney. The writer said he had cooked and eaten the other half. Were these real messages from the killer? Or were they cruel jokes? No one could say for sure. But the letters were published in newspapers across the city. That's how the killer got his name, Jack the Ripper. The letters made the story even more terrifying. Now people didn't just fear the killer. They imagined him as a monster, a ghost, a shadow laughing in the dark. With each new body, fear grew in Whitechapel. People stayed inside after dark. Women were too scared to walk alone. Some even dressed as men to stay safe. Police tried everything. They questioned hundreds of people. They searched houses. They followed every rumor. Still, the killer stayed one step ahead. The investigation was led by a detective named Inspector Aberlin. He worked hard, but the streets of Whitechapel were a maze. And there were no fingerprints back then, no cameras, no DNA tests, just lanterns, notebooks, and tired feet. Once, police found a message written in chalk on a wall near one of the murders. It said, "The Jewess were the men that will not be blamed for nothing." But no one knew what that meant. The message was wiped away before it could be studied. Time passed. The killer left no clear trace, and people gave up hope. By 1892, the case was officially closed, but the mystery remained. The question that burned in every mind was, who did this, and why? Because no one was ever caught, people started guessing. Some blamed the royal family. One wild theory said Queen Victoria's grandson, Prince Albert Victor, was behind the murders, and that the government covered it up. Others believed the killer was a doctor or butcher. The way the victims were cut open suggested medical skill. Could it have been a surgeon gone mad? Then came stranger theories. Some said it was a famous artist named Walter Sickert. Others blamed Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland. There was even a theory that the killer was H.H. Holmes, a serial killer from America. And then came a shocking idea. What if Jack the Ripper was a woman? A midwife, maybe. Someone who could walk the streets covered in blood and not raise suspicion. People have named over 100 suspects over the years. Some were well known. Some are forgotten. All the theories are fascinating, but none are proven. No one has found the final piece of the puzzle. Jack the Ripper didn't just kill 5 women. He left behind a mystery that would never die. Books, films, and TV shows have kept his story alive. Experts and amateurs, called ripperologists, still study the case. They examine old notes, study maps, and argue over clues. Some use modern science. Some use pure guesswork, but the truth remains hidden. Over 135 years have passed. Whitechapel is no longer the same place. The gas lights are gone. The alleys are cleaner. The fear has faded. But the legend of Jack the Ripper lives on. The killer disappeared into the fog in 1888 and never came back. To this day, we don't know his name. We don't know why he stopped. We don't know who he really was. The case that began with the murder of Polly Nichols in a cold morning in 1888 still haunts us. It always will. Jack the Ripper's story didn't end. It just stopped.